these valleys, farther from the sea than anywhere else on Earth, dinosaurs walked. They laid eggs, they raised their young, they lived their lives. And here, in China's Gobi Desert, they died their mysterious deaths. Inside these layers of ancient sediment are clues to one of our great mysteries, the day-to-day existence of the most dramatic animals the world has ever known. Once masters of the planet, they have been entombed for an eternity in this forbidding and unforgiving land. Primordial dragons, locked in stone for over 100 million years. There have been many quests into the time before humankind, but the farthest reaching dinosaur hunt in history, known as the Dinosaur Project, started in 1987 with the first stage of a multi-year joint venture between Canada and China. Scientists from the Canadian Museum of Nature in Ottawa, the Royal Turrell Museum of Paleontology in Alberta, and the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing have come in search of the graves of dinosaurs, have come in search of the dragon. They believe that by knowing more about the lives and deaths of the dinosaur, we will gain a fuller understanding of our own beginnings. And so they have set up camp in the inhospitable Gobi, 4 days' walk from the closest village. They will be here for 3 months, here on the edge of nowhere, hunting for dinosaurs.
Looks like you did good.
Hi.
Looks
Good.
marvelous from up on that hill over there.
Yeah. Francis!
Oh, you look like you got a tan or something.
You bet. Ping.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh!
Dale Russell from Ottawa is one of the world's leading dinosaur theoreticians. Some claim he has a clearer vision of dinosaur life than anyone in the history of the science. Even in China, Russell is considered a legend.
Dr. Russell? That's Ron Brinkman over there.
Another legend is Dong Jiming, China's foremost dinosaur expert. He has probably found more of their fossils than any living paleontologist. Phil Curry is among the leading dinosaur hunters in North America. He manages the dinosaur research program at the prestigious Royal Turrell Museum. The team consists of 30 Chinese and 10 Canadians. They will spend the next 16 weeks in almost total isolation. Just them, the desert, and the bones of the largest creatures ever to stroll the planet.
I would like to express on behalf of us from Canada our tremendous gratitude for our Chinese colleagues for allowing us to come here and to carry out a dream that we've always wanted to do, to work in the Gobi of northwestern China, where fossils are found in such abundance, and we look forward to find excellent specimens for China. Guys, 我很高兴在这儿，谢谢你。Let's go get it.
Cheers.
In all the world, there are fewer than 40 full-time dinosaur paleontologists. 3 of them are leading this expedition.
Every paleontologist is an individual. There's no question of that. In fact, you could go one step further and say every paleontologist is a character. Dong Zhiming is just a superb field man, more concerned with the finding of the specimens, collecting the specimens, and then the description of the specimens. Dale Russell's sort of on the other end of the scale, and he's the thinker of the three of us, and he's the one who develops the ideas. Whereas I would say that Dong Zhiming and myself tend to be people who test those ideas more than anything else. So we have basically three levels with the three scientists, and I think it works very, very well together.
For Phil Curry, the trip to the Gobi could be the highlight of a lifetime spent in awe of the dinosaur.
The majority of people who do research in paleontology consider themselves to be detectives in a sense. That part of the joy of our field is being able to go out and put together clues that sometimes are extremely obscure to try and understand not only who the body is that you're dealing with, but what was the nature of that animal's death, and take it even one step beyond that and try and understand what that animal was like when it was alive. Paleontologists, I think, would love to have a time machine that would just take them back so that they could look at these animals they were studying to know how right or wrong you are.
If fossils are to be found here, they will probably be discovered on the edge of the cliffs where eons of erosion have exposed rock laid down in the dinosaur age.
I have seen the sedimentary remains of the age of dinosaurs on 4 continents, and I have never seen anything, any of them, as beautiful as this.
We feel that this part of China at least has the same potential as the proven resources in both Alberta and Mongolia, and consequently there's a little bit of a risk-taking involved in this particular thing, but I think the chances of a very high yield are very, very promising.
To fossilize, an animal must be buried quickly in mud or sand before the bones begin to decompose. Then, over many centuries, minerals seep in and replace the bone, producing a fossil hard as rock. The odds of this happening are so slim they are impossible to calculate. But then on top of that, to actually find the fossil makes the world of the dinosaur hunter the world of the long shot.
Dinosaur hunting is probably one of the most rewarding fields I think anybody could be in. Here you're doing something that you dreamed about doing when you were a child. Number one, it's outdoors most of the time. You've got this sense of discovery. You're looking for clues. There's a lot of hard work involved. But when you've been at it for a while, you develop a search image, and it's automatic. You can be walking along thinking about something on the other side of the world entirely, and your eyes will catch just a glint of bone or just the right shape in the rock, and suddenly it fires something in your head, and you shut out everything else you've been thinking about, and then you focus on that piece of bone.
It's taken years of negotiation, of permits and permissions, of civil servant clearances to get the joint project off the ground. And now they are actually in the field. The Gobi is proving a reluctant and unwilling partner. They've been searching for 10 days and have found nothing of importance. For 150 million years, dinosaurs have been entombed here, and the Gobi is not giving up her dead without a struggle.
It's a horse, guys. It's the only one. It's the right end of the horse, though. Congratulations.
Is that all you could find?
Yeah, better days, huh? What did you get? Well, I guess that's it, guys. They're gonna send us back now.
Wonderful thing about looking for dinosaurs is when you're just starting to lag, you feel that you've looked for a long time, you haven't found anything important, or in many cases you haven't found anything at all, and suddenly you'll just find something that you know nobody's seen in 75 million years or more. And it's such a charge at that point that it just makes all the hard work that you've just gone through worthwhile.
After 11 days of frustration and depression, they get a break.
It's big, isn't it? Limb bone. It's not a huge dinosaur, but it's bigger than most of the dinosaurs we have in Canada. Where do you think the proximal end is? How would you put the proximal end?
Okay.
Maybe there. So that's 815 millimeters, 81 and a half.
Yeah.
81 and a half. It must be a big animal.
Oh, what is that? Fibula?
That must be a humongous rib. Do you think it's a rib?
Not rib. Very wide.
Yes, yeah. But what
Very short.
Yeah,
This animal, I think, belongs to sauropod.
yeah.
Right in Don's hand.
Yeah.
They think they found a sauropod, a giant four-legged plant eater. But how much of it has survived, they have no way of knowing.
So maybe we should start to work right away.
Look.
That's the idea.
There.
Like this afternoon we're hoping.
Well, okay, yeah.
Whatever it
Very
is,
nice, though. It's so well.
it is locked inside the hard rock of a 200-foot-high hillside.
Does it continue on up that way?
The Chinese have a solution.
You need to complete the skeleton.
Yes, that would be very useful.
Sauropods were the largest animals to walk the earth. And in China, it appears that they were even more fantastic than their North American cousins. It is possible that entire families of dinosaurs evolved differently in China than anywhere else. Possible because the geography of the earth has changed dramatically. Dinosaurs first appeared about 225 million years ago in what is called the Triassic period. At that time, the land of the planet was clumped together in one vast supercontinent. Dinosaurs soon occupied every corner of that world. But the supercontinent began to split up, and about 150 million years ago, the Jurassic period, China may have separated from the rest of the world. Dinosaurs there could have evolved in isolation, evolved differently from dinosaurs in the other continents. The sauropods, slow-moving giants with tiny brains who lived at that time, are a major clue to this evolutionary puzzle.
The sauropod, if such as it is well underway now. We've started moving the overburden back, which is probably the single most difficult operation in the sense that it involves an awful lot of physical labor, but it really doesn't take that long in relation to the whole quarry operation. In fact, it should be done within about another 3 days or so. Once that happens, then it's going to be a very long process to expose the skeleton as far as we can to find out exactly what the extent of the quarry is, after which we can start trenching around the outside and subdividing it into smaller jackets. Hopefully, like most dinosaurs, it's curled up somewhat so that the tails come back over the back and the head's been thrown back, and therefore it's a little more compact package than otherwise it's going to go way into the hillside, and that's going to be a lot of quarrying.
The Canadians are afraid that the blasting, even in the hands of the expert Chinese, would destroy the fossil. But without explosives, the job would take many months, perhaps years. As more ribs and vertebrae are discovered, an acetone-based glue is brushed on to keep exposed bone from crumbling. Recognizable parts of the skeleton are beginning to emerge, but there are crucial pieces missing.
Well, the big quarry represents a lot of work, and they always do. I would estimate that we're still at least 5 or 6 weeks away from completing that particular quarry. The sauropod that's in there is articulated. Part of the body's been eroded out, and it looks as if part of the body may have been eaten as well by carnivorous dinosaurs. So we're still not sure just how much of that specimen is there, but certainly there's at least a third of a skeleton there now.
At midday, with temperatures soaring to 50 degrees Celsius, the experienced Chinese call a 3-hour break. Camp life is tedious. There are no toilets, no running water. There is no electricity. They live in tents and sleep, for the most part, on the sands of the Gobi. Yet there is little complaining. To be obsessed by the dragon is an all-encompassing obsession, an addiction. The hardships of the camp go almost unnoticed. As the sun moves into the late afternoon, they go back to work at Quarry 1. Technician Linda Strong Watson, the only woman on the expedition, prepares a bone to be trucked back to Beijing.
Okay, Ping, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this plaster, and then I'm going to get you to dip the bandages and hand them to me, okay?
Okay.
Once most of the rock has been removed, the bone is wrapped in a jacket of rice paper and then covered with burlap strips which have been soaked in plaster. At the end of an exhausting 2 weeks, it is up to Dale Russell to gauge the chances of freeing one of the rarest of fossils.
I don't know. I just hope so much that there's sauropod skulls, because sauropod skulls are so rare and they're so important. I imagine there's something on the order of maybe 24 sauropod skulls in the whole world. So if we got 2 of them, 2 more here, we're doing pretty well.
After 3 weeks, they have moved 150 tons of rock, and it becomes increasingly clear that this time, like most times, the long shot is just not paying off. There are not enough bones in the rock to tell what kind of sauropod it really is. The time has come for a heartbreaking decision. Gilles Denis has worked 12 hours a day for 21 days on a quarry in the Gobi they are about to abandon.
Quarry number 1 has now come to an end. It turns out that after we uncovered all the bones, we realized that what we had here was a very small portion of a sauropod, just the neck really, and also a tail, a bit of a tail from what we think is a carnivorous dinosaur. So what we did, we collected all the bones that we thought were valuable, were in good shape, and were worthy of a collection, and jacketed them. And for economy of weight, we are going to leave the others that are not in such good shape. I'm afraid that's par for the course. Just about every quarry, we wind up moving that much rock. If you don't move it, you don't know what's there. It's always justified. So as it is, be it ever so humble, this is a small page in the history of humankind that is turned.
This is getting too bad, Phil. All right, sandblast them legs.
The goby does not give up her sacred dragons easily. Now, in triumph, she sends a sandstorm to remind them that this is no ordinary desert.
Today cannot walk. Philip, come on!
When you have dust storms that last for days, it gets very depressing after a while, because there's not much you can do. You just hover in your tent and try and hold it together, because you can't go out in it, you can't work. It's almost impossible to find fossils in a situation like this, because if you're facing into the wind, it's driving into your face. If you're turned away from it, the turbulence carries it right back into your face again. So you can't win.
In Beijing, 1,000 miles away, the skies will turn orange with the dust of the goby. And in the desert, work stops for the dinosaur hunters. The goby finally relents and takes pity on her 40 intruders. The dust clears. The search continues.
Ah, good morning, Francis. How are you today?
Don Brinkman, a specialist in the fossils of reptiles, has found scattered pieces of an ancient crocodile, evidence that the goby used to have a much different climate.
This is the edge of the eye socket there. You can tell it's crocodile partly because of the distinctive sculpturing. All those pits are characteristic for crocodiles. We're getting bits and pieces of most of the skeleton, like proximal ends of the limb bones and parts of the vertebral column, parts of the skull. So I suspect that once we finish, we'll have maybe 60–70% of the animal represented. We'll give it a try. It'll be like a giant jigsaw puzzle. I didn't get anything. Oh, here's one. No, great. This could be worthwhile.
160 million years ago, where the sands of the goby now rule, this crocodile snapped at turtles and attacked whatever prey entered the marsh in which it lived. Today, he's a complicated jigsaw puzzle for the disbelieving Chinese cook, Lao Jung.
不知道。
He doesn't believe.
Doesn't believe.
不知道，不知道。
不知道，不知道。
这个是啥？
Tooth?
牙齿。
Yeah.
牙齿。这个呢？
See these? Look like.
哦，对到一块儿。
That's okay. That's the femur there, and then tibia. We've got that tarsal bones in there. On the back. And then the toes.
对。 상사.
Very good.
Okay.
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 With any luck, we can actually prepare the bones as well with those things.
Yotung. Oh, Yotung. Yotung. Waiter. Waiter.
Whiny.
Whiny. Whiny.
You
Whiny.
是土门。
明天讲。
To work in the desert, each person will need at least 4 liters of boiled drinking water for every 12 hours. Like everything else, the water comes by truck. Every 10 days, supplies arrive from the village 8 hours drive away. For Linda Strong Watson, it also brings mail, her only source of news of her 2-year-old twins back in Canada. There are no phones in this part of the Gobi.
Just remember the Red River Valley and the girl who has loved you so true. 人们手里就要离开故乡，我们将怀念你的微笑。眼睛像红河谷，你的故乡，像一闪热爱你的故乡。Okay, we're ready.
They've been here for nearly 2 months, and the possibility of failure is becoming more and more a reality they might have to face. The big prize, a museum-quality specimen, has eluded them. The Gobi is winning. And then it happens. Jutting out from a canyon wall, they spot a massive limb bone. The only thing separating them from a major find is 100 tons of rock, 12 feet thick, covering most of the specimen. The Chinese come to the rescue one more time. As the overburden is removed, they get their first glimpse of a bizarre giant, a find beyond all expectations. No one has ever found a dinosaur quite like this one. It has the longest neck of any animal that ever lived. The bones of the neck could stretch back 40 feet into the rock, and there is still no sign of a head. To support such a neck, the creature would have to be 90 feet long. The only thing it could be is a spectacular Asian sauropod known as Mamenchisaurus. This would be the biggest one ever found. Mamenchisaurus has confounded paleontologists for a long time. Very little is known about its body and almost nothing about its skull.
The middle portion of the neck is exposed up there, and we're working into the quarry face now, looking for hopefully a head. We still got about, I guess maybe 10 feet to go, and the animal died with its head laying and neck laying on a bank, and our hope is that the head will be preserved before we lose the sediments at the top edge of the wedge. It seemed like one of the rules of life, which might be called Russell's Law, is that the head of the dinosaur is never preserved.
Why can't they find dinosaur heads? A dinosaur revolution? Or taken as trophies? Used as disguises? Or eaten as a delicacy? Perhaps one head served many bodies, or perhaps they just didn't have heads.
Or at least it's very seldom preserved, so we're hoping mightily. Against all odds, against all reason.
The Gobi has finally given up a major secret and has more in store. In the same rock layer, in the shadow of the giant sauropod, another dinosaur appears. A huge and perfectly preserved theropod, a meat-eater. It could have been scavenging the corpse of the Mamenchisaurus, or here, locked in stone, could be a fight to the death, a drama for survival which took place 160 million years ago.
I wonder if that's a tarsal. Probably not. You know, that could be, Philip, above that, that could be the distal end of the tibia, huh? Oh, that's beautiful. Really nice. As you can see, it's been in the ground for 160 million years and it's still okay. So usually when Mother Nature sits on something for 160 million years, it shows. But this is a very well-constituted bone.
This type of dinosaur is a relatively primitive version of Tyrannosaurus rex and would have weighed somewhere in the vicinity of 1.5 to 2 tons. Walked on his hind legs, very large teeth, very large claws, and been quite ferocious at the time. What's been found here already are the hind limbs, parts of the front limbs, and enough bone to indicate that probably the whole skeleton is in the hillside right now. You can see the lower leg bones, the tibia and the fibula, coming out of the hillside. And these bones are extremely rare. They're not found very often in specimens, especially this well preserved. And these are ankle bones. They fit very nicely right on the end of the leg bones, simply because everything isn't badly crushed. The bones of the foot are also well preserved. You can see these are the metatarsals. And we have a number of phalanges already from this quarry, that is toe bones, and quite a few of the claws as well.
Some will call this the find of the decade. But for the dinosaur hunters of the Gobi, it may have come too late. What they desperately want are the two heads of the ancient monsters. But it's already September, and winter comes early to the desert. It's time to close the first expedition.
This is the first year of a multi-year project, and invariably when we reach the end of the year, we feel that we just haven't had enough time, that you know, you'd like to solve all your problems in the first year. It never works out that way.
The discoveries so far seem to prove that the Chinese dinosaurs were unique. And for Dale Russell, it will open up a whole new set of problems, a whole new way of looking at their world.
I'm going to have to think about them when I go back home. I have to pull together the picture. I know they're different. They're more primitive, and they're big. Some of them are really big, much bigger than our dinosaurs in Canada. They're also more primitive, and they represent a phase in the evolution of dinosaurs which is poorly represented in North America. I knew that before I came here, but now I saw it. I saw it in the ankle of that theropod dinosaur. I see it in the tremendously long cervical ribs on that tremendous sauropod. I feel that we've just literally touched the surface. This area here would stand 5 years of intense field work very easily. We haven't the time. We're closing the season. It's just that the climate's changing. It's getting cold now, and the winds are coming up. We haven't got very many days left. I regret that, because I wished we could have pulled that theropod skull out of the ground. I don't think we will now. My appetite is whetted for some more. I think we understand the different teams working together from the different institutions are learning to know each other, to trust each other, to help each other. Misunderstandings occur, but when you see two guys working together with the same problem and working their hearts out, then all of a sudden you notice that one is Chinese and the other is Canadian. It makes you feel pretty good.
Time has run out. The skulls will stay in the rock. The Canadians and most of the Chinese disappointedly break camp. A skeleton crew will remain. They have touched the mystery of the desert, but they know the real treasure of the Gobi is still entombed in the rock face. A small roadside inn suddenly explodes with excitement. Big news has caught up with the hunters. The skeleton crew has freed the head of the theropod, and it is on its way to Beijing. It's all there, and it's perfectly preserved. Will take 3 more years before they get to the head of the sauropod, and it could be decades before the relevance of these finds is fully understood. But for now, the Gobi has smiled upon the expedition. In the small world of dinosaur paleontology, they have made history. Through the streets of Beijing, where once it could have walked 160 million years ago, to the Academy of Sciences, comes the head of the dragon.
So might even be a few more. Premax,
yes.
4.
The teeth are 4 inches long. Replaced through the millennia by translucent gypsum, they are perfectly preserved,
about the same with
a gift from the Gobi. The head will be shipped to Canada for further cleaning and a chance to compare in detail with other North American predators.
Better than most.
The Chinese have been finding huge ancient bones for countless generations, bones of the dinosaur and the ancient dragon. For in China, the same word defines both creatures. Here, the dragon is much more than a sacred force of the ancient universe, much more than a symbol to be feared and admired, much more than a myth. In China, the dragon is real.
In essence, you are in culture shock the first few times that you come here. You don't realize it very often until you've gone back and had time to readjust yourself to Canadian culture.
If China is a culture shock to Curry, the rodeo circuit of Alberta is completely foreign to China's most eminent dinosaur paleontologist.
Tom said he'd get you a ride on one.
We'll give you a bull ride. You don't want to try? Try. Victoria. No. Made in Canada. Yeah. Great place, Canada. It's not as bad as the try it on. Right? Good. There you go. Hi.
But Dong Zhiming is in Canada for much more than the chance to wear a cowboy hat. Dale Russell.
Dong Zhiming works very hard. He's mission-oriented and overcomes difficulties. He's a problem solver. He throws himself into his work, and he gets it done.
It's a lot easier to go from the bottom, from the river, and across than from the top and down.
The Badlands of Alberta have their own dragons to protect. This is arguably the richest dinosaur graveyard in North America, home of the Royal Turrell Museum of Paleontology and of Phil Curry, and now a new hunting ground for Dong Zhiming.
When you do find a dinosaur, because sometimes half of it's still on the cliff, the other half's at the bottom, and the rocks are all angled in funny ways.
The Canadian fossils are about 80 million years younger than the finds in the Gobi.
Yeah, a good place to camp.
And like the Chinese desert, this was not always a wasteland. In the time of the dinosaur, this was a subtropical delta, home of the big plant eaters and of the monsters who chased them.
The one thing about the specimen from China that you notice right away is the third metatarsal. It's so squeezed out in all the Cretaceous forms, and yet in all the Jurassic ones, never happens.
Yeah.
But, you know, the phalanges look very much the same with the pleuroseals and so on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any real difference in the tarsals,
Yeah.
distal tarsals.
Yeah. What?
But the astragalus is different. It's much, much higher here. Gives you a real impression for size.
But I think
Tyrannosaurus rex lived in what is called the late Cretaceous period, about 65 to 70 million years ago. Then he terrorized what was to become the Alberta Badlands. Now he stalks the exhibit hall of the Turrell and continues to cast his spell over Phil Curry.
In my case, I got interested in dinosaurs when I was a kid, and I guess I never grew up. I always had that fascination, and I probably always will. Dinosaurs, I think, attract children because they're so large and bizarre, but unlike the science fiction movies and monster movies and so on that kids like to watch too, dinosaurs are real. For me, it was a conscious decision, and of course I've gone far enough in the field now to realize that no matter how long I spend in it, there's always going to be new mysteries opening up in front of me, and that I'll never know everything there is to know about dinosaurs, and that adds a certain fascination to it.
The theropod skull, which was quarried in the Gobi, has been moved to the Turrell Labs to be freed from the rock which has held it since the time before man. What they discover here is that the Chinese giant had a much more primitive structure than Tyrannosaurus rex, confirming that over millions of years, dinosaurs changed dramatically, that dinosaurs were evolving.
The brain case on this animal is quite primitive. And if we compare it to, say, Tyrannosaurids or Tyrannosaurus and its kin in North America, and Allosaurus from the Jurassic of the United States, it's much closer to an Allosaurus brain case. It doesn't have the kinds of specializations that we see in Tyrannosaurus rex. And on the bottom, we can see these great big openings still in the bottom of the brain case that are, again, a characteristic you see in more primitive animals. The back of the brain case is dropped off, so we can, in fact, look right into the brain case itself. And for an animal that weighed about 3 or 4 tons and was anywhere from 7 or 8 meters in length, the width of the brain is only about this much, and the length of the brain wouldn't be much more than like that. So it's a relatively small brain for this particular animal.
This dinosaur may have terrorized the Gobi, but he probably wouldn't have given it much thought. However, There were brainier dinosaurs. This little 6-foot charmer called Troodon would have been clever enough to outsmart the gigantic T-Rex and certainly his more primitive Chinese cousins. Troodon was equipped not only with muscle, but with that most feared of weapons, intelligence.
This drawer contains almost all of the North American identified specimens of Troodon, and it helps explain why we get so excited when we find a partial skull of this animal or little bits and pieces, because it's not a well-known dinosaur. There's very few specimens, and yet what we do find are so interesting next to all of the dinosaur specimens that it's really worth taking note of.
This is Phil Curry's most treasured fossil, the brain case of Troodon, one of the significant finds of the Canada-China expedition.
The brain extends all the way from the back of the skull here, right through to this region, with the optic lobes centered right about this section right here. So there would have been a little bit more of the brain case covering over this part of the brain, but that's a large brain for an animal that's supposed to be quite stupid, number one. If we make a comparison between this brain size relative to the animal's body weight, and you're looking at an animal that would have weighed much less than an adult human, the brain size of Troodon is relatively larger than any of the mammals that lived at the same time as this dinosaur, or any of the birds that lived at the same time as this dinosaur. So that's pretty respectable in itself, but even compared to many modern mammals and birds, this is a respectable brain size.
At the Foothills Hospital in Calgary, a CT scan into the innermost passages of what may have been the smartest dinosaur of them all.
Right side and left side. The specimens facing to the left here.
Left, okay. So the right side would be further into the scanner.
We can only imagine what this brain would have registered and remembered, what the world would have looked like to the dinosaur we call Troodon. Dinosaur fossils have become a tourist attraction in Alberta. But Dong Zhiming is no tourist and can find evidence which would forever escape the weekend browser. Evidence like the footsteps of Troodon.
This is a dinosaur footprint, I think. One animal is this one. No? 3, 1, 2, 3, select this, and 1, 2, 3. Like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, it's smaller one. Maybe this is a big one.
Yeah, so these have 3 toes.
Yeah, 3, 1, 2, 3, this 2.
2, and this one's definitely a carnivorous dinosaur. Well, that's pretty neat.
I believe, yeah, this is animal made.
Yeah.
No nature, no nature.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's in the right kind of mud.
Although we know that dinosaurs laid eggs, raised their young, and lived on the planet for 150 million years, no one knows why or how they disappeared about 65 million years ago. But if dinosaurs had continued to evolve, what would they have looked like today?
Dale Russell would certainly be very quick to point out that this dinosaur and this whole group of dinosaurs is showing the same kind of tendency that mammals eventually led to evolving into a man-like creature, bipedal creatures. As this dinosaur was developing, of course, it was going in the same direction as mammals have gone, in that the brain was becoming larger, it was becoming more upright, the hands were becoming opposable, stereoscopic vision, and of course this is one of the very last dinosaurs.
In 1982, Dale Russell staggered the scientific community when he published a paper on what Troodon might have become all these millions of years later. He called his projection Dinosauroid.
There's an innate feeling that you would like to create a wave, and I don't think that's altogether good. So what you have to do is be very careful that you're creating waves for good ends. You have to sort of rein in the irascibility factor, you know. Be responsible. Of course I've been terribly responsible in whatever scientific theories I have floated, yes. It's nice if it turns out to be useful. Of course you have probably 10 wrong ideas for one that's worth anything. Sharing this with other people is just great stuff. I so enjoy that. And if we can it's sort of like little boys hatching a plot together. If you can get something going that's interesting and fun, oh, that's really good, really good. I think you should enjoy science as much as you can. And you can't enjoy science alone. You have to share it. It's like everything else.
In the dinosaur business, it is the giant finds which make giant headlines. But for Phil Currie, the most exciting discovery was the smallest possible relic of the dinosaur age. At Devil's Coulee in southern Alberta, the Royal Turrell Museum found tiny bones from broken eggs, the embryos of dinosaurs. 72 million years ago, for reasons which are forever lost in time, these eggs failed to hatch. And for Phil Currie, this was worth all the big finds put together. For this was the first time embryos had been identified in Alberta.
Well, in terms of the excitement of finding something, it was the biggest high I've probably had in my professional career. I didn't find the eggs. It was one of my technicians, Kevin Allenbach. But when I found them, I was just as excited as he was, and just in absolute heaven. It was tremendous. We were just like a bunch of little kids when we started picking up these little tiny embryonic bones from the surface of the ground and realized what they were. And at one point I had to drop a bone and rub my eyes and pick it up again and look at it because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It gives you an idea of, as a professional, how excited we are by this kind of find. The reasons are that with embryonic dinosaurs and baby dinosaurs and half-grown dinosaurs, we have a chance for understanding aspects of dinosaur biology that we don't have when we just have skeletons of adults. This is from that nest up here, and we have embryos inside the eggs there too. And this is the wash out of that nest. Every time it rains, you see more bones.
Yeah. Do you think the egg belong to the Troodon?
This one I'm not sure.
Not sure.
No. It's not a hadrosaur nest. Doesn't seem to be. The eggshell's too thin and too smooth.
Too smooth.
I'm not sure why people are fascinated with eggs and baby dinosaurs, because you think about it, and one of the reasons we think that people love dinosaurs is because they're so big. Baby dinosaurs are something that makes a dinosaur a more real animal to most people. It's such an anomaly to think that a big monstrous animal like Tyrannosaurus rex could have a cute little baby with big eyes and a big head and all the rest of it. I'm not really sure why it happens that way, but it certainly is the case that people are always fascinated by baby dinosaurs.
What these nests helped confirm, at least to Curry, was that the dragon looked after her young. They were not simply mindless creatures. They developed families. They shared. They lived together, and sometimes they died together. Here at Dinosaur Provincial Park, the Royal Turtle Museum discovered the remains of a huge herd of Centrosaurus, horned dinosaurs. They all died together at the same time, one dark day 75 million years ago.
Anywhere from 80 animals is what we have now. Probably 400 animals in here.
What?
400.
400.
All the same species.
Yeah.
It's sort of a log jam with the bones and the wood running through it.
This wood,
Yep.
and that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even more over there.
Yeah.
We don't find much fossil wood in Dinosaur Park. And so you'd almost think that it wasn't a forested region, that there weren't too many trees or plants around here.
Mm-hmm.
But when you find big chunks of wood like this mixed in with a bone bed, first of all, it was buried in a flooding event, but it was almost certainly ripped up by those flood waters as well.
Just below the surface of the Alberta Badlands, an ancient tragedy.
Well, the explanation we had for this bone bed is that a herd of centrosaurs tried to cross the river in flood, and that a lot of these animals drowned. And it sounds like a rather spectacular explanation until you look into the recent fossil record and as well at modern animals. And you start finding that large herding animals run into trouble frequently. It's happening all the time. As individuals, they can swim quite well. So as long as it was one going across the river at a time, they're okay. But as soon as a herd started going across, it's a different game altogether. They started fouling each other up, forcing each other underwater, and of course it also introduces mass panic, and that does no good to the herd either.
Curry believes that the bone bed proves dinosaurs were herding animals. He also suspects they were migratory, since a herd this size staying in the same place would have destroyed everything around it and eventually starved.
Migration's the term that we favor to use. I mean, migration means a lot of things. If you move from one area to another as an individual animal, of course, you're migrating. But to most people, what migration means is that animals collect into large groups and they move as a unit from one area to the other, and that they repeat this cycle on an annual basis. And that's what we're talking here. We're talking an annual cycle, which brings Centrosaurus, in this particular case, or other dinosaurs back into the region at the same time, year after year after year.
If Curry is right, then the logical place for these dinosaurs to spend their summer was north, into what is now the frozen Arctic. Now among the harshest environments known to man, the Arctic in the time of the dinosaurs would have been the closest thing to paradise, at least to Dale Russell.
This environment now is so utterly changed from the Mesozoic environment. 24-hour daylight and 24-hour night then as now, but it was warm. So it was a different environment, but it wasn't the ice and snow that we know here now. And you can imagine canoeing along in the Arctic twilight of those days with perhaps dinosaurs by the bayou, just paddling along when the sun began to go down again with the beginning of the Arctic winter, and the bald cypress trees dropping their needles and turning rusty colored in this sort of slowly sinking sun. And you know how we enjoy so much a crepuscular twilight environment. And thinking of the the forces of a Mesozoic nature, of a dinosaurian nature, preparing themselves for a warm, long winter night, slowly shutting down. The dinosaurs, perhaps with the adolescent, fleshed out young, beginning to form up and going to the south again. And the plants, it would have been an absolutely glorious autumn, slowly fading into a polar night where there was no frost and it was warm. In the Arctic, we really don't know what we're going to be finding. So in this sense, this aspect of our work together is truly explorational. We're not following a thesis. So there's something, there's a little bit more excitement and there's a lot more risk in working in the North.
The Arctic and the rest of the world were separated from Central Asia during the middle of the Dinosaur Age. But as the reign of the dragon was nearing its end, Asia and North America were linked by a land bridge across the Bering Strait or the Eastern Arctic. Fossils found in the Arctic confirm that dinosaurs once lived here, suggesting that dinosaurs used this bridge to cross between continents. So while Tyrannosaurus rex was terrorizing North America, his cousin, Tarbosaurus batar, was having the same kind of fun in Central Asia. For Dong Zhiming, this is a strange and wondrous experience, for he knows that 40,000 years ago, that same land bridge enabled people from Asia to cross over to North America.
I'm from China.
Yeah?
Yeah. You like my face?
Yeah.
You people are the same? Well, you look like each other.
You look like each other?
Yeah?
My face?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Anything we find here is direct proof of animal life that was living in the polar regions at that time. We know indirectly, because of distributions of dinosaurs around the Pacific Rim, that many different kinds of dinosaurs must have inhabited the Arctic, but we don't have direct evidence of them yet.
This is the most recent piece in the jigsaw puzzle of clues to the life of the dinosaur. In 1986, a local boy found a strange blue bone on Bylot Island, 20 miles across the ice from Pond Inlet. Among the Inuit, this place is now known as Dinosaur Valley, and it is here, under the leadership of the Canadian Museum of Nature, that they will set up camp for the third step in the Canada-China hunt for the dragon.
Site's over the hill over there. We're about 10 minutes away from it.
You tell me about the hotel.
Oh, well, it's not pitched yet. We're laying the foundation. The foundation is a good cup of coffee.
Yeah.
They came in summer to avoid the bad weather.
One of the things people always seem to forget in paleontology, Jiming, is that, it's not all that easy. We go all the way from 40 degrees above zero in the Gobi Desert, and then we end up in situations like this where it's really cold outside. People just tend to think that we're outside in the sun and it's quite enjoyable all the time, and it's almost never that way.
You got it?
There we go.
But if this afternoon snow, maybe tomorrow cannot work.
Hard to say. Even if the snow or rain goes off, as long as it's clear, we can still get out and work. So, yeah.
It is in the Arctic that Dong Jiming is introduced to that renowned Canadian delicacy, the fried spam and ketchup sandwich.
Geez, that's delectable.
This is the riskiest expedition of them all, the most difficult and the least likely to provide museum-quality specimens. There isn't much to go on except the isolated find of an old blue bone.
It's a little difficult to get your search image going here because color is no clue. The bone is either nice and white or sort of a bluish black or black, and depending on how fresh the surface is. And of course the rocks are exactly the same colors. Basically you've got to pick up each one and take a look at it if you want to find bone.
It is Dong Jiming, half a world away from his beloved Gobi, who makes the first find in this new dinosaur valley.
Identifies the bone and not the bone.
That's bone.
This bone, yeah. This bone maybe is circular, yeah. So vertebra, I think so.
It's hard to say what this bone is, but it almost has a turtley appearance to it, eh? Got a few more like that, and we'll be able to identify them, maybe.
Oh, I like. Enjoy it? Enjoy it? Yeah, you enjoy this. I hope we can find the tooth. The dinosaur tooth is identified, is very important. There? Come on. This bone.
Oh. Well, it's a terrestrial vertebrate.
Technician Clayton Kennedy finds a bone containing tooth sockets, but still no teeth.
Hadrosaur jaw. The tooth sockets along the inside. There's an articulation here. So it's a very small hadrosaur.
If we look for the small pieces, we'll find the big pieces.
The Arctic discoveries will come nowhere close to the success of the Gobi or Alberta. And even when they move further north, the pickings will remain slim. By the time the Arctic hunt comes to an end, the steps forward will have been small, but they will have been steps. And they will have established beyond doubt that dinosaurs once walked on this most desolate of lands.
Sherman got a tooth too, plesiosaur tooth.
Oh, that's good. Also, a couple of plesiosaur elements.
Yeah, I picked up a few more too. And hadrosaur neural spine.
Okay, great. You know, my real problem is I got a little wee tiny small brain in which I'm trying to reconstruct the world. And I guess this is kind of hysterical when you think about it. But the joy of finding things out and understanding, and you know, it's something that you don't ever know enough, and it's a race with time. There's not much of it. Anything that's beautiful now
as we are doing it and new and interesting to us. In a few years, it's not going to be beautiful and interesting anymore. We just can't rest with it. We have to keep on moving to the limits of our capacity to try to understand, and we will never understand completely.
We will never understand completely, but we know that there are more secrets. They lie in the Arctic, they lie in Alberta, and they lie again back in China, in the footsteps of a legendary adventurer. The team has split up. Dong has taken charge of the Mamenchisaurus excavation. Russell is in Ottawa trying to make sense of the specimens from the Arctic. And Phil Curry, with his colleagues from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, is taking a new team deeper into the Gobi to Inner Mongolia. For Curry, this is the fulfillment of a boyhood ambition. His first interest in dinosaurs was sparked by a book on an earlier expedition here, an expedition led by the legendary Roy Chapman Andrews. Andrews arrived in the Gobi in 1922 on a trip sponsored by the American Museum of Natural History. He would move beyond the Great Wall of China to where even the Chinese feared to step. For beyond here was the land of the Mongol bandits, the warlords, the descendants of Genghis Khan. Beyond here was the impossible desert. Andrews was the first Westerner to go beyond the wall in search of the dragon, and the dragon he found. He even had a species named in his honor, Protoceratops andrewsi. He was quite a character, Roy Chapman Andrews. The servants brought table linens and fine wines. Andrews brought a pearl-handled Colt 45, a handful of scientists, and a Hollywood cameraman to make sure the rest of the world knew how legends were made. It was Roy Chapman Andrews who first discovered dinosaur nests. Until then, scientists only suspected that dinosaurs laid eggs. This conclusion alone guaranteed Andrews a place in the history of paleontology. Andrews would spend almost 10 years in China before modern history caught up with him. Civil war and revolution would finally force him out. There were gigantic things happening in China in the late 1920s. No Western scientists have been to this part of Mongolia since Andrews left. Things haven't changed much.
哎，是不是？能是吧？啊，还有吧？这个是吧？两个二，一个222，一个是那个3套马车。哎，对，一个是那个红车。完了以后呢，他拉你，你拉他。
Andrews had dreamed of getting deeper into deepest Mongolia, but the Gobi would not let him pass. It is a little kinder to Phil Curry. This patch of desert is known as Bayan Mandahu. To To move beyond here is to move beyond the realm of man. The rainfall here is next to zero. The earth is parched and desolate. The land simply a gathering ground for the skeletons of camels.
There's just so much desert here, and the rocks just go on forever, and you think you could spend the rest of your life there and not even cover what you can see around you. And the closer you look at the area you're in even, usually the more material you'll end up finding.
Kevin Allenbach, who discovered the dinosaur embryos in the Alberta Badlands, peels back a layer of the Gobi and discovers a prehistoric story in a broken bone.
Well, what we have here is the fibula off a duck-billed dinosaur. And what's interesting about this one in this bone bed is that it has a fracture through it right here, which happened when the animal was alive and fused up again. It must have been quite the blow to break the leg like this. That's a clean break right through. You've got a huge growth on the backside you can see here. So this thing was actually sheared right off, and you can actually see the line of shear coming through here. Okay, so this actually was broken clean right in half, and then the animal, through walking on this broken leg, has caused the bone to shift. Muscles would pull the lower half, and muscles would pull the other half, so they no longer lined up even. Like this was just broken right in half, and then one end slowly fused in by building up a calcium bridge across, and the same with the other end. So you've got this bone which has this incredible twist to it. It just makes you wonder, like, these animals aren't as supreme as they may seem. Even though they're 28 feet long, they still suffer from all the ailments that you or I could suffer from. They still get the parasites, the disease, the broken bones from their environment, and it just makes them seem more human.
There are dinosaur bones wherever they look. Within a week, Bayan Mandahu will go from an unknown desert wilderness to the richest fossil ground in all of Asia. The dragon has been tracked to his lair.
The nests that we're finding here are identical to the ones that were found in 1922-23 by the American Museum of Natural History. The long, oblong eggs belong to what we call ornithischian dinosaurs, the things like Protoceratops and hadrosaurs and so on, and that the round eggs are probably laid by saurischian dinosaurs, the carnivorous dinosaurs and the big sauropods.
To the trained eye, eggs appear everywhere. But unlike the specimens in Alberta, there are no signs of the embryos the eggs once contained.
There's no baby bones around or anything, so I would probably consider these to be a spring die-off or something like that. Shortly after they were laid, flooded out, so they suffocate.
So what do you think about that?
Well, I don't think that's going to work. Here, you want to try that? I've tried a few different ways. It doesn't seem to be doing anything.
So you look at the crystal structure inside too.
Well, maybe this one will probably. A nice base for the crystals to form on when the water's dripping through. So.
Is there any chance of fitting a specimen like this in, which has obviously been crushed?
Kevin Allenbach will eventually piece this shell together. It will take him 103 days.
That would probably be all this. So that's probably even a fourth egg.
It is as if the Gobi had decided to display her treasures. And for Curry, they will go beyond those he has only dared dream about. For here in Bayan Mandahu, the Gobi will give up the Chinese cousin of Troodon, the one they call Saurornithoides.
That's the second. Yeah. Look, that's the raptorial one.
Yeah.
Look at the joint.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Although the bones themselves are tiny, the magnitude of the find is of enormous proportions.
This particular specimen is not a mature one. This is the femur, for example, or the upper leg bone, and you can see it's actually quite short considering it's a man-sized animal normally. We're looking at a baby, therefore, maybe a quarter grown, and despite the fact that it's interesting from being just a baby, it's also interesting because it's the most complete hind leg known for this particular dinosaur. People always assume that dinosaurs are well known, and in fact, it's exactly the opposite. We don't know dinosaurs all that well, any of them. And here we have an opportunity, because the specimens are fragmentary, because they're small, we have an opportunity to study very detailed anatomy on these animals that we sometimes can't on the bigger ones. If you look at the claws, for example, the claws are very sharp, and is obviously a claw that's used for ripping and tearing its prey. In addition to being the smallest specimen known to date of that particular animal, it's also the most complete as far as the hind foot goes. And so although the specimen in itself isn't very big, it's an extremely important specimen scientifically because it'll give us information on that particular animal that we don't have from any other specimen in either Mongolia, China, or Canada.
Does mean I get another beer?
Yes.
We'll give you 2.
By the third week, the discoveries are becoming overwhelming. Just keeping track of the riches takes up more and more of the team's schedule.
What we're trying to do here is catalog all the specimens as they come in. This way we can catalog 50 or 60 specimens a day, as opposed to having to catalog several hundred at the end of the field season. This is a metacarpal rather than a metatarsal, so this is in the foot, this is in the hand, this is Elmosaurus.
Okay.
And it's pretty diagnostic, it's very slender.
I don't know how you remember all this crap. It's amazing. I guess it's like learning a language.
Yeah. No, it's just a matter of looking at enough.
It's like learning Chinese.
You know, identifying bones almost like identifying humans, but visually. At first they all look the same, but once you become familiar with them, it's just like your friends and so on, that they look more and more different every time you look at them. There's differences in heights, there's differences in breadths, there's differences in how the eyes are and so on. Dinosaur bones, or any bones of any animal, are very much the same, that they may look very similar at first, but as you get into it more and more, you recognize the differences.
Ankylosaurus metacarpal. Troodon metatarsal.
Give me that, give me that, give me that.
A cheese-flavored doggy biscuit.
Each day seems to bring an even bigger find at Bayan Mandahu, but the find of the season, and perhaps the entire hunt, is made by project initiator Brian Noble of the Xterra Foundation.
So far for the past 20 minutes I hadn't found a thing. And then when I came around a corner I looked upslope and noticed in the sands several fragments of white material. So what I did was continue up the slope, finding fragments, which is quite typical because ultimately in this whole game of looking for dinosaurs, you're following traces up the hill. And then at one point I looked up, and over here I saw 2 fairly large pieces of white bone. So I approached those and had a look at them, and they were in the slope on one shelf down here and another slightly higher. And between the 2 of them I had a suspicion that what I had was a skull, but I didn't know what it was. And then shortly after that, 3 tiny little teeth turned up, and each of those teeth were ankylosaur teeth, really characteristic teeth, almost like a little arm with a hand on it, with little bumps, and I've seen these many times in Alberta. And so I guessed that perhaps what we had was an ankylosaur here, particularly after having come across the valley from collecting one on the other side. But I figured the next thing to do would be to bring Phil in and let him have a look at it.
I hope the rest of the skull turns up, but I'm not too optimistic, actually. I just hope the wind didn't take the teeth off.
Ankylosaurs, or armored dinosaurs, from this age are extremely rare. Young ones are virtually unknown.
Anything we find on this thing's going to be important. I mean, you can't go wrong on it, can you?
Well, let's see what we got back here. Looks like there's more bone going in this way here.
All that was known about the behavior of ankylosaurs until this find was that they were probably plant eaters. But this is the find of a lifetime. There is more information here than in all the theories and all the books. Curry calls in the geologists to see if this could have been the site of a collapsed dune, or if perhaps there is another explanation.
It almost looks as if they got caught in something pretty sudden. I mean, it wasn't a watering hole, obviously, or something that dried up and they just died together. It looks like they were buried or something.
Yeah. Slump or a storm or something like that?
I would guess a storm.
Yeah. It is possible.
It's a pretty amazing story. I don't know what you can do with it. If you can come up with some more details, it would help out.
Well, I'll look around.
In this, a science of hunches, the dinosaur hunters are into a sure thing. For here, on this very patch of sand, the goby claimed the lives of 12 baby ankylosaurs.
That's your next baby curled up. That's nice. It's something.
Yeah. Skull.
Yeah, right on. Another skull. So that body's curled right up, eh? Right here?
Right there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, teeth?
No. That's front of here.
Teeth will be down here.
Right.
Good show.
Right on, number 4.
Today, we realized that one of the reasons we couldn't sort out what was going on in this quarry was simply because we weren't dealing with one animal at all. We were dealing with several. So it appears now what we're looking at is not only an interesting specimen from the perspective of what the animal is doing, but because we have a mass death site of at least 5 individuals of dinosaurs that are all about the same age. And what that indicates is that we're also looking at perhaps a group of dinosaurs that have been growing up together, that they hatched and they've remained gregarious and remained in association with each other, and possibly even were with a parent at the time. Most of the rock in this particular area was formed in arid desert conditions. So in fact what we're looking at is the side of an old sand dune. And the angle on the sand dune indicates that it was very unstable, and it's possible that these dinosaurs were clustered together seeking refuge from one of the sandstorms that still rips through this region very regularly, and were either buried by the sand coming over the top of the dune and therefore smothered, or perhaps a massive slump from the top of the sand dune that just buried them all.
These ankylosaurs will go on to become the highlight of an international traveling exhibit. But first, the exacting work of freeing them from the stone which has invaded their skulls.
Yeah, it gets its own character as you go along. This guy, he's got a bit of a hair lip, as you can see. Quite the overbite. Missing a few teeth, sort of like Popeye. Got the old sideways squint to it. Yeah, they get their own personality after a while. Every skull's different. If you look at the one in front, he's got a bit of a protruding jaw. Looks kind of Cro-Magnon. This one's a lot better. This is more feminine. This one, a she, that a he. It's just a personality you impart upon your specimen. Everything you work on, they become either cute or ugly or something like that. Like this is a nice little bulldog face. A little pet you'd like to have running around the house until it grew up, started wetting your carpets, and then you'd kick it outside. I have little things in my head.
Until this discovery, armored dinosaurs were thought to be loners. They had never been found in a group before. No one had ever found a young one. In each of these dragons, there lie 100 answers and 1,000 questions. As they prepare to leave Bayan Mandahu, they know that they have fulfilled their mandate. They have moved the science forward a giant step. Curry and his crew catch up with the other team members in the small Chinese town of Ehrenhot. They are now in the 4th year of their work on the Dinosaur project. They are no longer strangers.
Very pleasant.
Oh, no.
And so, outside a railway station in northern China, 2 Canadian scientists catch up in a language all their own.
Nothing complete. Everything is disarticulated on the distal end of a delta. We had an amid fish vertebrae. Can you imagine, in marine sediments full of Scapanorhynchus type sharks and lots of plesiosaur material, and we have 2 chimerid jaws. Then we have a sprinkling of dinosaur bones.
These are the rocks where our history lies buried. These are the rocks where the mysteries remain. What secrets and adventures and dramas must lie here? What treasures are stored in time? These are the hunting grounds of the dinosaur, glimpsed briefly in the passing of humankind. These are the rocks of ages, long before ours. Yet it is upon these rocks that we will build our past, who we are, and how we got here. Our own wondrous story. Upon these rocks, we will continue our never-ending saga, our quest for knowing, for understanding. Upon these rocks of the earth, we will continue our search for the dragon.